So, would you like to know how to pass the B2 exam in German? Welcome back to your Polyglot Academy, and in this video I'm going to explain to you exactly what you need to do and what you need to consider in order to pass the B2 German exam. It doesn't matter whether you're taking Goethe or Telk, this method is going to work with every type of exam you're going to take, so let's go. And firstly, we're going to start with the first part of the exam, which is the reading and comprehension part, or Leseverstehen. Now, the first thing you gotta worry about is your vocabulary goal, which has to be of at least 3,000 words. Now, for the B2 level, you need a wide enough vocabulary to understand complex texts and different topics. Knowing only the 1,000 most common words is not going to be enough. You should aim for at least 3,000. This is going to allow you to read articles, letters, and exam texts without stopping every few words to check the meaning. Now, even though you may only know 1,000 or 1,500, it may not stop you from getting the exam. Nevertheless, I would suggest you to get to at least 3,000 to not overcomplicate yourself. And you can learn these words by using Google frequency lists and by making Anki flashcards or just normal flashcards with whatever app you would like to have. Now, such frequency lists can be found online by simply Googling top 1,000 most used words in German or top 2,000 most used words in German, and by simply plotting them into a flashcard app. It can be something digital like Anki, but it also can be something physical so that you can see the words for yourself. And in this case, it's also very important to consider that you have to write the word, but also an example sentence and even denoting what part of speech you're talking about. So maybe you're talking about a verb, so you're going to make a sentence with the verb, and maybe also some kind of particularity about that. Now, the third thing I would recommend is also to train for skimming and scanning. This is very important in all types of written exams, but in the reading part of this exam, you don't have to read every word carefully. You also have little time, so you have to develop skimming, so basically reading very quickly to get the general idea of the text, and also scanning, so looking for specific details such as dates, names, numbers, and these skills are going to save time and help you answer questions faster. And now finally, an extra tip would be to maybe practice with authentic German newspapers, so something like DW, Süddeutsche Zeitung, etc., to simply get used to the style and vocabulary of real German text, which may come up in the exam directly. Now I'm going to talk about the listening part, or the Hörverstehen. And the first goal, which is the most important thing, is to understand German broadly in everyday situations. Now, before you can handle the listening exam, you need to be able to follow spoken German in normal daily conversations. Now, this doesn't mean understanding every single word. Now, at first, focus on catching simply the general meaning. So, who is talking, what the topic is, and what is happening. And this doesn't mean that your level is low. This doesn't mean that you are only at a B1 or at an A2 level, because the most important goal of the B2 is to show fluency, so to show that you are able to understand people talking about all different kinds of topics, but only kind of understand the basics of that. So if you can understand German broadly in everyday situation, then that simply means that you're fit for the B2 exam and that you should take it. So please, once you can follow everyday German without feeling lost, now you don't have to understand everything, but simply without the feeling of being lost and not even getting the message of the dialogue, not even getting the most important things, then you will be ready for more specific exam training. And there are lots of different resources to also kind of understand this skill of understanding German better. You may want to use Easy German videos, which have both English and German subtitles and are very good in regard to this, as they will help you to kind of help your vocabulary, but also learn new words. And by also having the English subtitles, you can also use this for self study. Now, another thing which is very underrated is to kind of exploit your hobbies in German. Now, choose topics you already enjoy in your own language and simply listen to them in German. For instance, if you like anime, watch anime dubbed in German. If you like football, watch match commentary or sports analysis in German, or even sports interviews with football players. If you enjoy astronomy, find documentaries or videos in German about it. You can find all of this in YouTube, and learning through topics you care about is going to keep you motivated, even when you feel like learning German may not be the only thing you have to do in your life. And the third thing I would recommend is maybe to rewatch things you already know in German for easier context. So if you already know the story of subject or something like that, it's going to be much easier to follow it in German. And it's also going to build your confidence and helps you recognize new words in a familiar context as you already know the story. And once you're comfortable with all of that, so once you can understand German broadly in every situations, and you've also kind of backed that up with further training, start with exam style listening exercises from the exact exam provider, depending on whether you're doing a Goethe exam, a TELC, etc. And this is probably the most important thing because every provider has a slightly different style of questions and recordings. So maybe even by not being perfect at understanding everything, you're going to get a very good score in regard to that. And an extra tip would be to maybe listen twice, once for gist and second time for detail. That applies to every kind of listening exam, not just to German one, but also, I don't know, maybe French, English, depending on the exam you're going to take. So please pay attention to that because in real life we don't usually hear something twice, but as you're practicing, maybe by listening to it a second time, you're going to be able to kind of also go through the most detailed information. And that is only going to be better for you because in the exam, you're normally allowed twice to listen to a text. Now, the third part of this video is going to be about the writing exam, so Schreiben or schriftlicher Ausdruck. And there are some things you have to worry about. Now, the most important thing, in my opinion, is to learn formal writing structure. And this, especially for the B2 exam, you need to be able to write formal text, such as letters or emails. This means following a standard structure, such as a greeting with sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, etc., an introduction, so by starting by clearly stating why you're writing the text, a main body, so basically developing your points in one or two paragraphs, each focusing on a specific idea, and you might need to politely close your mail with mit freundlichen Grüßen, followed by your full name, etc. So this is structure you need for an email, for instance, but depending on the text you're going to get or depending on the text you're going to write, there are lots of different structures you have to pay attention to. So please, if you know the structure, you're already going to get lots of points on not the content, but really the fact that you know how to write an email, for instance. And this is also very good. That shows that you're confident not only with the language, but also with the questions that you get. Now, a second very important point is to maybe use a few fancy words to flex or to show a range. ChatGPT can also help you find them because in writing, variety in vocabulary makes a good impression. So you don't need to use very complex or rare words that nobody understands, but adding a few more advanced expressions basically shows that you can write beyond basic level. And that doesn't only show that you have a basic slash very good understanding of German, but that you have an advanced one. Now, for example, instead of gut, you could write angemessen, or instead of schlecht, you could use unangemessen, etc. So the key is to make your writing richer without making it unnatural. And as I already said, you may write such fancy words like you may use 3 or 4 of them during the exam or during a text. You may search for them Google online or just with ChatGPT. He's gonna help you. And so this is a very important aspect. Now, the third thing I would recommend to you is also to follow the task requirements exactly. I know that may sound trivial, but one of the most important things is to carefully read the task and follow every instruction. If the task asks for 3 specific points, make sure you cover all 3. If they ask for a certain format, stick to it. Meeting the requirements alone can be enough to get a passing grade, which is going to be ausreichend. And that does not only apply to following the task requirements exactly, but also to using the correct structure to maybe understand what the examiner wants from you and simply respond to that. If you do all that without overcomplicating it, you're surely going to pass. And finally, if you would like a better grade, so maybe a gut grade or a sehr gut, please consider grammar and structure. Because if you want to achieve a higher grade, you have to keep your grammar as correct as possible and make sure your ideas are organized by even using the passive voice or by maybe using some grammatical particles that are not that basic. So maybe the Präteritum or the Plusquamperfekt, etc. If you use those, this is simply going to show that you have a more advanced level. And you could also aim to divide your text into paragraphs and also use linking words like außerdem, besides, daher, therefore, and jedoch, however, to connect your thoughts smoothly. This is going to make your writing easier to read and more professional. And now finally, an extra tip from my side, maybe to practice with a timer, because writing under exam pressure is going to feel different. And this is also going to help you get used to thinking, planning, and writing very quickly. And it may also reduce your stress during the real test because you already know how to manage your time. So this is a very important thing to consider. And now finally, the speaking part, der mündliche Ausdruck, or just sprechen. And I think the tips are going to sound very trivial, but if you implement them all, then it's going to result into a very good grade. A thing that I would do is to maybe either talk to friends, yourself, or ChatGPT in German daily. So the fastest way to improve speaking is by simply using the language daily. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking to friends about stuff, language partners, or even to yourself. I do this all the time. Simply reflect about stuff in the language that you're learning. Now, if you don't have anyone to practice with, you can also use ChatGPT in order to stimulate conversations. And the goal is simply to make speaking German a regular habit. So it's going to feel more natural over time and so that you're not going to get stressed during the exam. Now, a second thing I would also recommend is to learn discussion expressions, because in the B2 exam, you're going to discuss about a certain topic, or you're also going to present your opinion about something. So maybe knowing how to express not only your opinion, but also certain words that you might need in a conversation or in a discussion. These words, these key words are very important. So something like meiner Meinung nach, ich bin damit einverstanden, ich sehe das anders, etc. These are very important expressions. Now, a third tip would be maybe to also keep words simple, because clarity at the end of the day is always going to be better than complexity if you're exaggerating with the complexity of the word you're using, because it's also better to speak clearly with simple words rather than try to use difficult vocabulary and maybe get stuck during a speech or during the expression of a thought of yours. So this is also very important. And finally, please try to focus on pronunciation and also fluency over perfect grammar, because mistakes are normal when speaking, even at a B2 level. This doesn't mean that you can speak like a native. This isn't a C2 level. So please don't stop to correct every small error, because it may break your flow. It may show to the examiner that you know that you're making mistakes. So please, maybe you could do this twice or 3 times, but not all the time, because it may interrupt your flow and it may also interrupt your thought process in your brain. So that might be disadvantages for you. And at the end, I may also recommend you to record yourself and also listen back to catch pronunciation issues you don't notice live, because by recording your speaking practice and also by listening to it can help you notice mistakes you might not hear while speaking. And this is also a very good way to track your progress over time, so that you can look back on yourself and also think, wow, I made that much progress. This is also going to motivate you further in your journey to learn German. Now, these were my tips, and this is also the method on how to pass the B2 German exam. So yeah, if you have any questions or whatsoever, please make sure to leave a comment. If you like the content and wish for more, subscribe to the channel. And if you have any video ideas or any wishes, just make sure to contact me either privately or through the YouTube channel. And as always, thanks for listening. Have a nice day and see you soon. Goodbye.